What if the stories we buried in dusty archives were never just stories? What if the reports we dismissed as imagination were, in truth, fragments of something much larger, something that once tried to reach us, and maybe still is? Tonight, we reopen a forgotten drawer in history, and what lies inside was never meant to be seen again. They called it NICA, PETHA, National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena. To most Americans in the late 1950s, it was a name buried beneath the headlines. A private group chasing flying saucers, fueled by curiosity and late-night radio tales. But to those who were inside it, the reality was far more complex. It wasn't about proving aliens were real. It was about proving the government knew more than it said. For over a decade, NICAP collected reports from military pilots, radar operators, and ordinary citizens' cases that the Air Force quietly archived under weather anomalies or equipment malfunction. And yet, their witnesses described things no weather balloon or aircraft could explain. When NICAP closed its doors in the mid-1970s, much of its data was boxed up, lost to time, but a small number of files were never officially logged. They vanished until a set of declassified documents appeared in 2006, labeled Unregistered Case Material. That's where this story begins. The file was discovered in a Washington storage unit, an unremarkable beige folder marked simply Fall River. 1963. Inside, 14 pages of typewritten notes, 2 photographs, and a single audio tape labeled Subject for a Dead Day. The handwriting on the cover was familiar to researchers. Former Air Force Major turned NICAP investigator named Donald Kehoe. His signature meant one thing: this was authentic. Kehoe was meticulous, skeptical, and politically cautious. If he documented something, he believed it had weight. The notes describe a series of radar returns observed over southeastern Massachusetts on the night of September 11, 1963, at 2:17 a.m. Operators at Otis Air Force Base tracked an object moving at roughly 1,800 miles per hour, well beyond any known aircraft speed of the era. The object appeared to shift altitude erratically, from 80,000 feet to 10,000 within seconds. Pilots scrambled, but by the time they reached intercept range, radar contact vanished. The Air Force dismissed it as radar error caused by temperature inversion. A convenient explanation repeated often in the era. But Kehoe's handwritten note in the margin read, "Independent ground observer, confirms visual. Silver disk, oscillating light pattern." For decades, that might have been the end of it. Another strange night, another page filed under unknown. But the second half of the file was far stranger. It contained a transcript of an interview between a NICAP field agent and a man, identified only as Witness A, technician from a civilian air traffic control station near Fall River. The interview began. Normally weather conditions, radar readouts, shift details. But 3 pages in, the tone changed. The witness claimed that just before radar contact was lost, every instrument on his console froze completely. The screens went blank. Not off, not malfunctioning, just blank. A light hum filled the room. Then, as suddenly as it appeared, everything resumed. The clock, the dials, the signals. Only now, the radar sweep was showing an echo inside their control perimeter, as if something had materialized within a few hundred yards of the station itself. The technician said he looked out the window, and for a split second saw a white shape, motionless, glowing faintly, like light trapped in fog. NICAP investigators followed up for months, collecting testimony from other staff. One woman recalled the power surge. Another described a smell ozone, sharp and chemical, lingering in the air after the incident. Yet despite the multiple witnesses, no physical trace was ever found. When the Air Force reviewed the case, they cited equipment interference caused by power line fluctuation. But NICAP's private correspondence told another story. Internal memos between Kehoe and the group's science advisor mention electromagnetic distortion consistent with proximity to high-energy field generators. If that phrase sounds technical, it's because it was meant to be. They were describing what we now call M-field disruption, a phenomenon modern researchers still struggle to reproduce. The 1963 Fall River case became one of many lost files that NICAP kept separate from its public reports. Why? Because in the political climate of the Cold War, anything that hinted at foreign or advanced technology was automatically classified or dismissed. For decades, the public thought NICAP's archives were gone. But in 2006, when those forgotten boxes were rediscovered, digital archivists found something peculiar in the margins of the old note's handwritten coordinates. They pointed to a remote stretch of woodland about 40 miles from the original Fall River station. No record indicated NICAP ever visited that site. But in 2011, a small research team from the Mutual UFO Network decided to check it anyway. What they found was unsettling. Remnants of concrete foundations, steel fragments, and what appeared to be the remains of a small monitoring tower. Buried near the site was a rusted metal container containing reels of magnetic tape, badly degraded but partially recoverable. On one of those tapes, a voice was audibly low, distorted, but clear enough to identify a phrase repeated multiple times. "We are observing your transmissions." The audio was studied extensively. Some claimed it was a hoax, a radio feedback artifact, or even a spliced recording from military communications. But others, including veteran audio engineers, argued the modulation was too complex for standard analog distortion. It carried harmonic frequencies beyond the human vocal range. Kehoe himself had once speculated that some UFO reports involved electromagnetic interference directly affecting communication devices. He wrote, "If these objects are under intelligent control, their ability to manipulate signal frequency suggests a technology far beyond our own." And yet, NICAP's own members began to fracture under pressure. By 1969, infiltration and disinformation were rampant. Files vanished, correspondence went missing, and key witnesses suddenly retracted their statements. One investigator wrote, "We're not being silenced by force. We're being erased by confusion." That quote never made it into any book. It sat buried in a footnote, rediscovered decades later in a private collection donated to Georgetown University. So, what happened to the Fall River file? According to archival logs, the documents were officially transferred to civilian hands in 1975, when NICAP dissolved. But there's no record of who received them. The 2006 rediscovery suggests someone, perhaps a former investigator, kept them hidden for over 30 years. The handwriting on the folder edges included two sets of initials, DK and HRC. The first, obviously Kehoe. The second, unknown. Cross-referencing NICAP staff records yields no match for those initials. Some researchers now speculate it might have referred to human radio contact, a shorthand term that appeared in other UFO or related memoranda of the time, often referencing anomalous transmissions believed to be intelligent in origin. In 2019, A digital restoration project attempted to reconstruct the lost pages of the Fall River file using ultraviolet imaging, hidden beneath ink blots and typewriter smears. Faint outlines of red pencil marks were visible coordinates again, this time in a circular pattern, converging near Buzzards Bay. The implication was chilling. Multiple sightings, spread across several nights, all triangulated around a single central point. The modern explanation, of course, is mundane. Atmospheric phenomena, temperature inversion, misread radar. And yet, the old tape, Subject 4A, says otherwise. When played at half speed, it contains a faint secondary, tracker, human voice whispering under the main distortion. Audio engineers isolated the words, "We told you not to look." The phrase repeats, fading in and out, as if layered between static bursts. Some dismissed it as pareidolia, the human tendency to find patterns in noise. But others who listened claimed it induced an odd emotional response, unease, even dread. One researcher described it as the sense of being observed through the sound itself. By now, the official stance of the Air Force is clear. No credible evidence supports extraterrestrial visitation. The NICAP files, they say, were a well-meaning but misguided collection of coincidences. Yet the Fall River file remains curiously unaddressed. It's neither confirmed nor debunked, just ignored. In 2021, an anonymous Reddit post appeared under the username control_4A, claiming to have recovered the original subject for a tape. The user uploaded a 14-second clip before their account vanished. The sound was identical to the 2006 restoration except for one difference. The whispering voice was gone. Instead, a new phrase was audible. "We have resumed." Asterisk skeptics argued it was a hoax, leveraging the old case for attention. But when digital analysts examined the spectrogram of the audio, they found an unusual modulation signature, one that matched high-frequency interference patterns recorded during NORAD's radar anomalies in 1963. In other words, it wasn't random. It was the same type of interference the Air Force logged the night of the Fall River incident. Asterisk, what does that mean? Maybe nothing. Or maybe, as some NICAP veterans quietly suggested before their deaths, these weren't visitors from another world at all but observers already here, monitoring, adapting, waiting, asterisk in the closing pages of the rediscovered file. A short handwritten note sits at the bottom of the final sheet. It's faded, but legible under ultraviolet light. It reads, "If this file is ever reopened, ensure recording equipment is shielded." They respond to observation. The handwriting matches Kehoe's. And here's the part that unsettles researchers the most. In 2006, the archivists who found the folder claimed that when they first opened the box, the air inside smelled faintly metallic, like static. One of them reported that his camera battery drained instantly when he recharged it later that night. The first photo on the roll taken before the box was even opened showed a white blur in the corner, faint but distinctly shaped like an oval disc. Asterisk, coincidence? Probably. But what makes this story linger isn't proof it's the pattern. The way these reports echo across time, technology, and witness accounts. Different decades, different instruments, but always the same rhythm. Light, interference, silence. Asterisk, so why reopen the NICAP files now? Because maybe, after all these years, the question isn't what did they see, but why were we told to forget? If the government had nothing to hide, why were so many credible witnesses discredited? Why do the same radar anomalies appear in modern Pentagon reports? Under new names, UAP incursions, unknown aerial systems, but describe the exact same behavior as Fall River, 1963. Asterisk, maybe what Kehoe and his colleagues stumbled upon wasn't alien contact, but evidence of a long-term observation programs, something operating silently, without acknowledgement, across generations. The names change, the technology evolves, but the silence remains constant. Asterisk, and if the whisper on subject 4A was real, if it truly said, "We have resumed," then perhaps the most chilling part isn't what they are, but how long they've been here. Asterisk, the Fall River site today is quiet. Trees have reclaimed the clearing. The air feels ordinary. But every so often, hikers report faint radio interference in the area, even with no signal. Phones glitch. GPS falters. Local wildlife avoids the clearing. The old foundation stones are still there, half buried in moss. One of them bears a carved set of numbers, worn almost smooth, the 11th of September 63. No one knows who etched them, and maybe that's the point. Some files were never meant to be reopened. Some signals were never meant to be heard twice. But now that they are, the only real question that remains is the same one whispered across every lost report, every faded page, every erased recording. What if they never left?